A common complaint of managing and hiring partners, as well as firm librarians, is an incoming student's inability to do terms and connectors searching. Lexis Advance uses natural language unless a connector is used outside of a common legal phrase. Terms and connectors will receive more precise results, though, as it gives the user control over where the terms are in a document. Natural language, on the other hand, provides a more open-ended set of results. The system will look and deliver every document containing the terms you search for without regard to their context of one another. So learning how to use terms and connectors will drastically increase your efficiency when searching. Terms and connector searching involves formulating a search composed of one or more relevant terms or words that are linked together using connectors. Connectors, in turn, establish proximity, how close or far apart between the terms and phrases are, and multiple connectors can be used in one search. Some basic connectors you can take a look at are the term and. And between two terms will ensure that both terms must appear in the same document. Or will separate synonyms or alternative terms. Within in words, so this is going to be /in, it will find documents with search terms that appear within a specified number of words of each other. So for example, if you did your first name /3 last name, it will look for that within 3 of one another. You can also use /s for same sentence, that's going to look for it within the same 25 words, or /p for same paragraph, that's going to look for it within 75 words of one another. Some of the more advanced connectors you may use are preceded by n words. This will be pre/n with n being a number. This is saying the first term precedes the second by not more than the stated number of words. So for example, pay-per-view television. If you did paper/to television, it's going to make sure that the term paper appears in front of the word television. This is important when the words should not be switched back and forth. Not in document is the and not. This will eliminate a document from a result set that contains a certain word or phrase. Very helpful when you're looking at things like forms, and you may not be interested in a form being filed on behalf of a defendant, but instead of plaintiff. By using and not, you can eliminate that word defendant from the search results. The last advanced connector to take a look at is the at least command. So this will be at least in. So again, at least this many number of the terms appearing. This is an extremely helpful terms and connectors because it will help you make sure that the more frequently a term is used, the more in-depth a document will deal with that discussion or topic. You can always refer to the tips button on Lexis Advance, and from here towards the bottom, you'll be able to select what you'll see as search with terms and connectors and access this search connectors quick reference card. At the top of this page, you can download this as a PDF. And what this will allow you to do is, again, just give you all of these terms and connectors that you can quickly refer back to with examples of how they work in practice. Also to note, as we're covering these right now, if you're more familiar with the Westlaw's terms and connectors, Lexis does recognize all Westlaw terms and connectors as well. So you don't have to go and relearn them. You can continue to use the ones you know and have practice with. So from here, let's just look at some general search reminders, things to take into consideration and make sure you know. First, with terms and connectors, these operate based on an order of priority. So going back, the first one it's going to take into consideration is the word or. So any of those synonyms you place. From there, it'll move to the proximity connectors, so the /n/s/p, etc. Then it looks for and, so both terms, and finally and not. You can always change the order of priority by placing a connector, by placing words within a parentheses. The parentheses will prioritize the connectors contained within. You also have what are known as wildcard and root expanders, and finally noise words. So these are words like in, the. These are taken in consideration when you use that /n/s/p. And we'll put all this into practice momentarily, and you'll see how this all kind of plays out together. Now, for natural language, there's a few quick things just to remind you of. When doing a natural language search, if you place a space between words, it will act like the terms and connectors or. Using quotations allows you to locate just a specific phrase when searching. We'll talk a little bit in the future about alternative phrases and things of that nature. Natural language searching also looks for all singular, plural, possessive, and alternative plural forms that are not contained within a quote. So a thing like writ would look for writ, writs, etc. There are no search equivalents for written numbers. So for example, if you were looking for the 7th circuit, if you type the number 7, TH, it will not look for the spelling of 7th. So you need to make sure that you place both of those. Natural language searching actually does ignore those noise words we placed earlier. So if you used something like in, a, or the within your search terms, it will not look for those. And finally, hyphenated words will look for both hyphens, the squishing of the words, or as if the hyphen was a space. So let's take this and put it into practice and see how you can do a terms and connectors search. So our hypothetical here is a customer is walking through a store when they step on a grape, causing them to slip and fall. The question is the store liable for any injury sustained by that customer? Now, the easiest way to do terms and connectors is what's known as the TRAC method. This is TRAC. T stands for terms. So in our specific one, we're going to go back to our hypothetical, and the major terms we're interested in here are customer, store, slip and fall, and liable. These are all the major facts and major legal issues we need to deal with. The next is root. So these are those things I was discussing, those wildcards or root expanders. A exclamation point is going to look for additional letters after a word, and an asterisk is going to look for a replacement one. So for example, in this, slip exclamation will look for slipped or slipping. Fall with an asterisk will look for fall or fell. But also words like fill or full, so we don't necessarily want to use that. We're going to use just alternative forms of it. So whenever you are doing these, make sure you break down your terms to their root word. Next is A, so alternate terms. How can we use, say, our original terms in different manners? So for example, a customer may be referred to as a patron or a shopper. A store may be a grocery or a convenience store in this instance. Things like liable may also have to deal with negligence. And then finally, you can link this all together with our connectors, those and, or, slashes, etc. So let's go ahead and put this into practice. Here we're going to compare and contrast how these searches would work. For natural language, you'll see we could type in grocery store liable for a customer slip and falls on grape. And we would actually pull 10,000 plus cases with approximately 3,000 here in Texas. This terms and connector search you're going to see here is very, very in-depth, and it's not necessarily what you'll do each time, but I just want to show you an example of how this could work. So first we'll go ahead and we'll link all of our terms and alternative terms together. So here in parentheses, to make sure we prioritize these together, we're going to look for grocery or convenience or store. We also want to make sure by using the and that we're finding our additional customer or patron or shopper. And our issue here is that this customer slipped and fell. So we're going to use /s to make sure that customer is in the same sentence as these words here. Slip, slipped, slipping, or fall, falling, or fell, fell. And finally, our issue at hand is whether they are liable or whether this was negligence. So we ended off with making sure that the terms and, liable, or negligence were also included. And you'll see here that we pulled 194 cases with 41 specifically in Texas. So looking to Lexis Advance, we can see how this search would play out here. You'll notice whenever you use a terms and connector search on Lexis Advance, we will actually bold and italicize all the terms and connectors for your search at the top. This is a great tool as you're preparing and getting used to use terms and connectors to ensure that you're using and the system is reading it as you intended. So here we can see the ors being bold and italicized, the parentheses, /s, exclamation, etc. One thing to note when you start using these more advanced search methods is under actions here, you have an additional ability to do some search actions. The first here, you'll see this exclude legal phrase equivalents. Legal phrase equivalents can be turned on by coming to your More and then select Settings, and under your Lexis Advance settings, you can make sure that these are turned on. What term equivalencies are is determining things that are known as both constant and conditional equivalents. Constant equivalents are things like the Blue Book list, hyphenated words, incorrect or different spellings, and legal equivalents. So for example, spelling judgment with an E or without an E, it would look for both of those. Another example would be the word actual malice. Other ways that this term is used in the legal field is express malice or malice in fact. So it will look for all those terms. If you have this turned on, by placing quotes around a term, you will eliminate it searching for additional equivalents. The other type of equivalency is what's known as conditional. So these are where there's a very strong association between the words, but not necessarily it's automatically being the same thing. An example of this would be something like a motor vehicle accident, also searching for the words automobile accident or car accident. So a motor vehicle accident could technically be something like a boat or an ATV, which necessarily doesn't correspond with a case dealing with car accident. So again, if you ever have a word that you want to look for its specifically that phrase without additional equivalencies, you want to make sure you place it in quotations. From here, you'll also see the ability to run this search as a natural language. So a good final step after you've done a terms and connectors is to go ahead and do this and see if any additional cases pop up that you previously were not seeing. So putting it all together, as I mentioned at the start, you'll not necessarily always do this extremely complicated terms and connectors search from the start. A good idea typically is to start your search with a broad legal topic and then stack your sub-issues, facts, and jurisdiction, etc. through your post-search filters to refine your results. There's two major reasons for this. One is Lexis does not truncate their search results. So when you see that 10,000 plus, it ensures that there's no overlooked documents. You don't have to worry about anything being eliminated from the start. You also don't have to worry about having too much specificity in your initial search and thus pulling 0 documents and needing to identify which of those terms or filters caused you to drive down to 0. So for example, if we did an initial search of search and seizure, we could then stack using our search within results, warrantless within the same sentence as cell phone and Fourth Amendment. We could further stack jurisdictions like Texas. And say we keep adding some additional facts. For this hypothetical, say the client was pulled over and there was a warrantless search of their cell phone, and as a result, the police officer searched his person and found marijuana. If we also added the term maybe marijuana and got to 0 results, it's very easy for us to identify that marijuana was the one thing that took it to a specificity level where we no longer had cases or secondary materials to review. We can drop that filter back out and automatically have search results to work with without having to rerun a search. And just remember, as you're working through this, there are multiple support options provided to you by Lexis. One is the 24/7 research hotline number, that 1-800-45-LEXIS. These are barred attorneys that work from the Dayton, Ohio headquarters for Lexis that can provide you help with building terms and connectors searches. If you're ever struggling, you can always call in, pose a natural language search to them, and phrase it as, how would I do this as a terms and connectors, and can you explain why? If you're in the library or just another situation where you're unable to make a phone call, you can always use the live chat support option that's located under the More menu. Again, these are our research attorneys. They can help you work through these steps. And you always have access to me. If you need any additional help, if you have questions about anything covered in this training, feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to work with you to get better with terms and connectors.